Hello, this is a video response to Derek359's thought on Prop 8, and I initially made a video last night as a response, but for some reason I was having uploading problems and I couldn't upload my video. But I'm actually kind of happy that it didn't upload because I had a dream last night that made me realize I wanted to emphasize two things that I didn't talk about too much in my previous video. So with that being said, I want to start off with two things. Number one, I completely believe that homosexuals should have the right to marry, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they don't have that right everywhere around the world. But number two is that I don't know a lot on the topic, and the only knowledge I have is based on information in my psychology classes and a little bit of my opinion too. So please keep that in mind when you watch this video, because what I say isn't the way. It's not exactly how things can be, but hopefully it can give some insight and help us understand this puzzle a little bit more. So with that being said, I do know, based on my psychology classes, and if you've taken a psychology class you may have heard the same thing, but let's say a girl growing up, her relationship with her father is going to directly impact the way she views relationships with the opposite sex when she strives to get a mate in the future. Now, of course, this is for a heterosexual female. So let's say that there was a father in her life, but he actually wasn't in her life. He was completely missing. Either, the parents got divorced and she had no contact with him, or he just completely was just not in the life at all. And because of this, what can happen is she can become excessively needy in the relationships with those males that she strives to have relationships with in the future. So she may actually become very promiscuous, and because she thinks that she has to give herself up in order to get that attention and affection that she missed in her relationship with her father growing up. But this can also happen with fathers that are in daughters' lives, but just are not there for them. So he can be living with her, however, maybe he'll give her empty promises. Maybe he'll lie to her and, say, oh, I'll hang out with you after school. But then when she comes home from school, he's doing something else and he says he doesn't have time for her. And what can happen with this, if he lies to her a lot, is that in relationships growing up with those mates, she may have this complete lack of trustworthiness towards her male mates. So basically, maybe she doesn't believe that they love her, or she believes that they're cheating on her and things like that. Now, this happens with males too. The relationship with the mothers have an effect on the way that they view relationships in the future. Now, of course, once again, this is only for heterosexuals, but to me, I believe that this is the same thing for homosexuals too. Let's say you're a homosexual male. Your relationship with your father is going to have an effect on how you view relationships when you are searching for a mate in the future. So that leads me to my dream. Last night I had a dream, and I'll quickly tell you a little bit about it. There was a professor in my dream, and he was a professor in my program, but in waking life he isn't actually a professor. This is just a dream professor. And there were people in the program, other students, that are actually students in waking life in my dream. And we were talking to this professor, and all of us were calling him Dad. Like, oh, hey, Dad, is this research acceptable? Do you like this thought? And blah, blah, blah. And I found him extremely attractive. And there's a reason why I'm telling you this. This leads me to another psychology theory and information that is always discussed in psychology, and that's Freud's Oedipus complex. Now, the Oedipus complex, the name stemmed from Oedipus, the Greek mythological character, and the Oedipus complex is basically stating that you have this attraction to, if you're heterosexual, the opposite sex parent growing up. And there is a lot of controversy with Freudian thoughts. However, I love Freud. But anyway, I actually completely agree with this theory because it happened to me when I was growing up. I had a complete crush on my dad. I loved my dad. I would hold his hand, I'd put my head on his shoulder, and I would love spending time with him. And it was a different type of liking with my father than it was for my mother. It was a crush. Now, of course, I don't feel this way today. That would be a little bit weird. But I think growing up, that is natural because our parents, no matter whether or not you're homosexual or heterosexual, the person that you are attracted to, that relationship is extremely important, and you base your views on how your relationships will be based on that relationship with your parents. So that leads me to another part of my dream that I had mentioned that Derek had actually mentioned in a previous video. And that is, let's say two males are bringing up a son. And, that doesn't necessarily mean that that son is not going to have any interaction or communication and nurturing affection with members of the opposite sex. Let's say the husbands, the two fathers' mothers, which would be the son's grandmothers, can take that role. She'll be the motherly figure. So you don't necessarily have to have a father or a mother. You can have a motherly figure and a fatherly figure. In my opinion, the only thing that really matters is that, of course, they have to be unconditionally loving and nurturing, but they also have to be in that person's life on a fairly consistent basis. So that's why parents are number one, because you live with them. But grandparents, you probably see them on a very fairly consistent basis if you live near them. So maybe every other day or maybe even every day that you would see them, and these grandmothers can take that motherly figure role. So I do not believe at all, actually, that it has to do with gender roles and sex roles. I do think it is basically the basis of how you view relationships. Now, when I say that, though, it makes me think of what my mother and heterosexual females' mothers mean to girls growing up. Do we need mothers? Do we need them at all? I do think that the males and the fathers are very important for heterosexual females, just like the mothers are for heterosexual males, and just like mothers and fathers are to homosexual females and males, respectively. But what about the opposite sex parent? Now, I think with my mother, I think maybe the relationship with her was important to me growing up because I got to see how she interacted with people of the same sex. Could that be it? Or maybe, definitely, I know that I picked up on gender roles because of her, because all of us, when we're kids, we mimic what our parents do and what people do around us in order to learn. So that's pretty much all I know. Once again, I do not think that you need a mother or a father specifically, but you need a fatherly and motherly figure. But really, I think the only thing that I know to be very important is that member that you know that you will be with or that you're attracted to. That relationship has to be nurturing and good and healthy. And that's all. Hopefully that was a little insightful, even if it's just a little bit. Have a good night. Bye.